Okay. All right, Jake, welcome back to the Scratch Mastermind Pro Pod. How are you doing?
I'm all right. How are you? Thanks.
Yes, good, thank you. Good, thank you. You're fresh back from Scotland. You played a
Yeah.
pro event up there, the Tartan Tour, was it?
Yes. Yeah. It was. Yeah, it was good. The start of the
How,
season was pretty nerve-wracking at times, but yeah,
I,
it was good.
I can imagine getting back into the swing of things. How did it go? You
Yeah.
made the cut. You were seventh
Um.
place heading into the final day.
Yeah. No, it was. Yeah, it was good. It was obviously like you feel a lot of pressure when it's the start of the season and stuff, but I kind of went about not checking the leaderboard for pretty much the whole event up until after I made the cut, which was a mistake, I guess, because I came off. I think I was level par after 2 rounds. It was cold. It was really cold, dead windy, like it was proper Scottish golf, like exactly what you'd kind of expect. And I just played solid golf. To be fair, I just did everything I was meant to do, and then just started like getting messages off people like saying, "Oh, play well tomorrow." I think one person even sent me like some message saying, "If you finish in this place tomorrow, you'll make so and so," which was like, I'm getting all these messages. I don't know what to do, so I just ended up just checking the leaderboard. I just sort of said this, I'll just check it, and I was in seventh place, like, and I think there was 100 people playing, and it's really good. Like, it's a really good standard for what it is. Like the depth of pro golf in the UK is getting quite strong now, really. And I guess I'm just happy to be a part of it in a sense, and kind of just show up and start the season off well. But just I sort of like I was saying to you, like what's so important. A few things I wasn't so sure of what I was doing particularly well, and then when you're in that kind of pressure environment after a while of not being there, it can kind of catch you off guard, which it did. And I went out the next on the last day, and I'm not going to say I got unlucky, but a lot of things really didn't go my way. A bounce here, a bounce there, and it's a whole different day. And I think it's all about looking after your momentum, like protecting that momentum that you've got, because if you don't, and momentum starts going the other way, it's just it's a one-way street kind of thing on both sides of the spectrum. So just need to be a bit more wary of that and not get so caught up in numbers, which is something that I was talking to you about. Understanding whether you're a numbers guy or a feel guy, I do like to get, the pin, the back of the green, the front of the green, kind of adjust that to the wind. And then from there, it's all feel based. And that was my biggest learning curve in these past kind of 2 weeks, is that, you really have to understand what works best for you. And when pressure comes in all of a sudden, that's really when you have to know what works best for you. So yeah, it was good. Start of the season, a few rusty mistakes, I'd say, which is something you can expect. You hope they don't cost you. They cost a few guys because they obviously the guys that missed the cut, it cost them that early season rust. But I kind of I was aware of that. I didn't let it get to me, and then I kind of didn't prepare as well as I could have for the next event. Just being so exhausted, that was kind of my bad. I didn't kind of prep as well. So that's the kind of stuff that is controllable, like we've talked about. All that stuff you can so easily be in control of. And I didn't do a great job of that. So kind of live and you learn, I guess. Move on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all of that must be fantastic experience, right? And if you reflect on probably where you've come in the past couple of years, the more you can get yourself into those positions where you're in the final day and you're competing, the better experience you're going to get, right?
Yeah, for sure. You're playing against guys who are really good. And there's a lot of psychological parts to it. Like I myself, I don't really like talking to people when I'm playing. I think my granddad always said to me, he was like, why would you spend all those hours by yourself, talking to no one, practicing, to then spend 4 hours competing, trying to make conversation, trying to make friends against people, well, with people you're trying to compete against. It's not a disrespect thing. It's just what works for me. I just like to stay in my own bubble. I just found myself like talking to people a little bit too much here and there, which is my issue. But like, yeah, like you said, being in contention is always good, and pressure is a privilege if you look at it that way. So yeah, it was really good to be a part of that.
Yeah, awesome, buddy. Okay, so last week we talked quite a bit about the genesis of Scratch Mastermind, your involvement as a co-founder and as the guy that invented the Scratch mat and the benefits of that, along with the weighted club. Two amateurs who are trying to get to single digits or Scratch golf. On our side, we're building a whole online program around that, and giving people access to the physical products and the online training. Patrick and I are the case studies, the founder case studies, essentially. I was playing off about 12 to 15 when we started this journey. Patrick, probably something similar. And we've come on a bomb since then, learning so much using the weighted club, in combination with the mat, which is your system, which is incredible. And at the moment, we're just trying to get that out to amateurs and get that in people's hands in the coming months. And we're just putting the course together and getting everything ready, essentially. This week, we wanted to talk a little bit about course management, for one, and mental game. So fresh off the back of a final day in a pro event, we probably have some good anecdotes around that.
It's very real.
Particularly, but particularly in relation to amateurs and how those two parts of the game, beyond just the swing, which is where a lot of people spend most of their time trying to fix the swing, which we need to do. We know that amateurs have to get on playing and build that consistency, because the consistency opens up the doors to more advanced course management and more advanced mental game stuff. But we really, it was your document that you wrote originally, which was called The Art of Scoring Without Touching Your Swing, that really got me intrigued. And I'll just finish quickly. I read that document. Obviously, I spent time with you over a 3-month period when we were developing this business and the idea, and my knowledge for golf just blew up. I got a lot more information, a lot more knowledge. I'd seen you and I played golf with you, so I saw, how you approached the game. And that's when I was shooting, I think at minimum 12 over, and sometimes, 19, 20 over, depending on the day. And I had this very inside swing, so I wasn't compressing the ball very well. I was flipping through. And then out of the blue, I shot a 74, which I'd never even broken 80 before. Was crazy and incredible. It was at one of the tougher courses here in Bali, New Kuta, which is by the sea, so a bit linksy, a bit windy.
Nice.
And I was actually using your techniques and strategies from that. So a bit of a long-winded explanation, but I think it's important for the audience to understand. Obviously, since then, I've started working on the swing side as well with the weighted club and the mat, which is now giving me way more consistency. And I most recently shot a 78 off the back of that, in combination with all the course management stuff. But that's kind of my background. I guess you could give a bit of your background in the approach to course management and mental game, and then we could start to talk about some of the topics, maybe 2 or 3 in each category, from the perspective of, how can you lower your scores without touching your swing, for all the amateurs out there who are 15 to 17 to 12, sort of in that range.
It's a great point. No, that's really interesting. I'd say there's a few things that like have like caught my eye over the past couple of years, and one is that it's so important there's only so much that you can control in golf, and it's actually quite a lot. The only thing you can't control is that 2 second or however long it takes you to swing a club. Once you pull that club away, all the work you've done beforehand is what creates that movement of the club. So you're not in control of that anymore. You have to let your body take over and execute and perform. But there are a lot of things that you can control. What you eat, when you go to bed, the range session that you have you stretched well enough? Have you analyzed the course? Have you looked at the pin? There's so many things that people ignore, and they're so interested in chasing the swing, which is a really important thing. And I will say, you could have Scotty Scheffler's caddy on the bag, you could, you could sit there and kind of meditate all day,
Yeah.
for like half an hour every day, say. I forgot even what that word was for a minute. I went in my head. And you could do everything absolutely perfect. You could have the best course plan in the world, best caddy in the world, but if you're not swinging the club good, you'll still shoot a bad score, right? So swinging it good. People say golf's all up in the head, but it is a very technical game, and you do have to be technically on point before all that stuff is important, but you may as well apply it, right? So if you apply all those things that you can control, you're going to see a difference. It's inevitable that you will, drop scores immediately, pretty much, if you apply yourself correctly. But another thing as well is people talk about staying in the present for me, and I think it's really important to focus on one shot at a time, but people take it a little bit too literally, like as in that shot's gone, I'm going to focus on this shot now. Whereas if you started your first three holes and you sliced it out of bounds on the first three holes and ignored that because you're so in the present, you'd then get on the fourth hole and slice it out of bounds again. So it's like you have to adapt to what's going on the golf course and be very aware of what's coming up in the future and what's gone on in the past, and that's how you can kind of make the most of the current situation that you're in. So that's what I found really important. Those first few holes that you play of the day, there's a lot to take from that, and they can really help you on your next 15 holes. So in terms of staying in the present, that's been one thing that I've thought about a lot. That people kind of misinterpret, I think, or get wrong in a sense.
So I mean that's all really, really interesting. And I guess like what we experienced when Pat and I started this journey, we loved golf. We played golf a lot. We've been playing golf for years, but there was a huge amount of information that we just didn't know that we didn't know. And when we started learning all that information from you, it really started opening up, our ability, our course management, our risk assessment, managing that mental side of the game without, blowing up it on a hole. Previously, if I did that, my round was kind of done and I'd go away a bit sad that day that I didn't have a better day on the golf course, So managing all of those things. I think there's a lot of amateur players out there that maybe play and just don't necessarily know that these things exist, even though golf's very well trodden, path over the past 100 or so years. So it's really like educating them, and that's part of our journey here, is like educating them and giving them access to those techniques and information that we're testing ourselves, and then packaging it up for them, making it digestible and usable, and ensuring that it's creating the most impact as quickly as possible for them. What are those areas that you think would create the most impact from the mental game side perspective, for example?
I'd say just the basic knowledge of course management. I think people are always trying to play. Number one, people are trying to play as if they're on TV. So that guy did that on TV, so let me kind of replicate that. Instead of just kind of put your ego aside and play within yourself. Do you know what I mean? Like people are, if it's a par three and it's 230 yards and you hit your driver 230 yards, don't be scared to pull out your driver in front of your mates. If anything, you want to be the guy who comes off at the end of the day with the lowest score. So I think ego is a massive thing that people need to put aside. They need to play percentages and just understand how to approach different parts of the greens, depending on flags, depending on their lie, depending on the situation, but also just be super clear on what their process is, how they like to go through each shot. So, like I said to you, you don't want to be flying around between a numbers guy and a field guy. You really need to have a kind of blueprint that you work off, and you need to really acknowledge that for yourself, what it is that you do when you're out there, and kind of replicate that over and over again. And then just basic understanding of what we actually want to do with this ball, because people are just trying to aim straight, fire straight, and it doesn't really happen. If we got people understanding how to kind of eliminate one side of the golf course, they're all of a sudden playing really good golf. They know that if they miss, they're going to miss it there, and they know that if they're going to execute, they're going to hit it over there, right? So
Yeah, that's a huge
people,
one, right? Getting rid of the two-way miss. That was
the
huge
two-way
for me
miss,
and
yeah,
Patrick.
and
Then you can
yeah,
plan for your one-way miss and plan your way better around the course. I'm just trying to explain it
100%.
maybe for people that are listening that don't fully understand. If you're an amateur and your swing's inconsistent, you tend to hit, in both directions. You don't really have control over it. Once we get control over it, we still have a miss because you're going to have a tendency to go one way, but it gives them the ability to plan their way around a course, knowing that their miss is left or a slice right, whatever it is.
Yeah, 100%. And I think just kind of trying out different shot shapes. There's 9 different shots that you can play in golf. There's a high draw, a low draw, high fade, low fade, the 3 straight ones, and then just a mid draw, mid fade, basically. And one of those shots are probably going to work for you on the driving range if you went out and tried before your round.
Yeah.
So it's important to kind of mess about and see what works and take that out onto the golf course.
For an amateur, obviously, even me and Pat aren't learning all those shots yet. We're trying to just trying to avoid two-way misses and trying to find whether our natural shot is a cut or a draw. Do you think amateurs will find that as well eventually? They'll find that their natural shot is either going to be, once they get on plane, is either going to be a draw or a fade.
Yeah, I think so. You're probably going to have a bias. I like to think if we can get people as close to a neutral path and face as possible, then they have the kind of that kind of variety of shots that they can choose between, and that just gives them so much choice. Really, they can approach pretty much any flag at that point. But you probably will get a bias with a lot of people depending on their body types, how they can swing a golf club, how they can't swing a golf club, so and so. But yeah,
we've kind of gone back into the fundamentals, and it's the weighted club and the mat that will get people back on plane and eliminate that two-way miss. Let them start working with a one-way miss so they can plan their way around the course a little bit better using course management. But beyond that, it's kind of let's dive a little bit into some of the examples. I've got one here which is interesting, and I used this that day that I shot that 74.
Mm-hmm.
I listened to the Par Train podcast and they were talking about it a few months ago, and it was actually like a controversial topic for some reason. They weren't even sure if they were going to run that episode, but it's a concept called the alter ego, and this is just building a persona, that plays without emotion, or taking somebody that you aspire to, you like their traits, and you want to kind of bring that onto the course. I don't think this is a controversial concept at all, and the way I framed it was when you go to an office, traditionally you dress up in a suit and tie, or a shirt and tie at least, because that brings a certain level of formality and intention and focus. I'm here to do work. And then if you've worked in an office and you have a dress down Friday where everybody comes in their normal clothes, the energy is very different that day. People are messing around, there's less intention, but it's Friday, and I think that's quite a good analogy for golf, because it's really about coming in as, with that intentionality, with that formality, if you want to score that day. And again, we're trying to teach people how to score better, right?
Yeah. I literally forgot that we spoke about that. That is a massive thing. If you bring your normal personality, everyone's got their at-home personality. They'll be a little bit lazy here, or they might do this, they might do that. And if you bring that to the golf course, it could affect you in some ways. I'm far from perfect, and if I brought my normal self to a golf course, I would really, really struggle because my mind's in a million different places. I love chatting to people, and it just wouldn't work for me. So I really had to adapt and create, like what you said, like an alter ego. That's a really good way of putting it, Vion, to be honest. And yeah, that's worked for me. A lot of people do that. And like you said, you go into work, that person who walks into the office, if someone from his office saw him on a night out, he'd think, who even is this guy? I've not met you before. So it's work. It depends how you want to treat it. But if you want to beat your friends, there might be a certain part of your personality that you have to kind of flip around and swap over if you want to perform. But on the other hand, you've also got guys that that go out there, have a few drinks, and that helps them relax. So I think it's all about understanding what works for you.
Yeah.
Trying a few different things, right? There's nothing wrong with messing around and trying things till it works.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think that that's a technique that's more useful for, sorry, one sec. Yeah, thanks, Bobby. Thank you. Sorry, don't worry, I'll cut that out. So do you think that's a technique that maybe works better for people that struggle more with the emotional side of the game, or get down on themselves if they mess up, or maybe blow up under pressure, or whatever it is? Like, is that a useful thing for them?
Yeah, 100%. I'd say golf is a lot bigger than just golf, right? So I feel like every human's got like some kind of energy like around their body that you can feed off. And at the end of the day, it's like if you were sat playing poker with someone, if someone's giving off way too much emotion, it really rubs off the wrong way, and it can start to affect them. Whereas if that person just played it cool, kept their chin up the whole day, you'd never be able to read them. They'd start convincing themselves that they're fine, and all of a sudden things just start going their way. So it's really important to stay in check with your emotion. I always like to, anytime I'm down, like I just like to say to myself, just keep my chin above the surface. Like just keep your chin up, and no matter what is going on, keep your chin up and walk with confidence. Like that's always helped me. I'll never ever let myself get down, and I try to really not get too angry as well, because it's important to, like, anger only does, I've spoken to you guys about this. You and Patrick are both some of the most chill guys in the world, but it's important to never really get down on yourself, because anger only increases your heart rate, increases your adrenaline, and flusters your mind, which makes you not only make worse decisions, but not allow yourself to execute shots. So it's never helped anyone. It never will do. And that's another part of course management, just staying in check with your emotions. Like you said, that's a really, really big part.
Yeah.
Playing the game, it's a game of chess. It's a game of poker. You need to have a poker face on you when you're out there, but you also need to plot your way around. You need to have a look at the situation, weigh up a few options, and see which one has, the highest percent chance of being successful, and you need to go with that one. So, I obviously like to think, I understand to a certain level now after competing for a while, like how to kind of plot my way around. I'm still learning, but it is obviously a massive part of course management. If you don't have it, there's no point in swinging it well, like you said. So they go hand in hand.
Yeah, plot your way around emotionally and physically.
Yeah,
I remember. Yeah, in both those rounds, looking back, when I shot 74 without, before I'd done any work on my swing with you and the mat and the club, and then the 78, which was more recently. In both those rounds, I think the two things that stood out was, one, I wasn't scoring. I don't actually like scoring. I feel like it distracts me from the game, because I'm,
sure.
and I mean physically writing the scores down and keeping track.
Yes.
So
yeah.
And usually there's somebody in the group that enjoys doing that, so I kind of just leave it to them.
Yes.
So I wasn't scoring.
Always have one guy.
Yeah, exactly right. One guy who loves it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wasn't scoring. I was kind of just focusing on playing. I was very present. I felt very calm those days. I kind of attributed it to maybe not being aware of the score, and wasn't really that bothered that day. I was just kind of going out there to have some fun. But I was really, really present both those days, and I wasn't really aware of the score, and I felt very calm, and I can get upset on the golf course too, and get frustrated and annoyed when I hit bad shots. But yeah, I just felt very calm. And I think that probably goes to show that actually getting upset and, frustrated and all those things are probably counterproductive to your golf game, and definitely have been to mine in the past, because I would take one bad hole, and then I've ruined my whole round, and it just compounds, So I think it's actually a really valuable aspect of the game for amateurs to find the tools, and for us to give them the tools that really help. Alter ego is one, or coming to the game with that formality and that intention. That's one of them. There's lots more that we've talked about.
There's interesting strategies that people talk about. People will go on about all sorts. Like one of my best mates who's at Tennessee, I've spoken to you about him, Josh, great golfer. We talk about golf all the time, and it's great. We just bounce things off each other, and he talks about trying to only breathe through his nose and not through his mouth, which kind of helps him just stay calm and keep his heart rate at a pretty standard pace throughout his whole round. There's other guys who will talk about keeping a slow pace of walking while they're playing, so not
just
walking
on that,
too fast.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Is that because Pat and I actually talked about this earlier? Is that because keeping your heart rate low and keeping yourself calm stops you, breathing too heavily, pumping adrenaline into the body, which then can affect the golf shot in terms of?
100%.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, 100%. I think Rory's spoken about it as well. And when I saw him going down the last at the Masters, when he had it and he had that wedge in, I saw him breathe. I saw his mouth like open. I was like, oh my gosh, like, he's really feeling it right now. Like we all were. Like, I think everyone watching it was just, we'd like to feel like we were as nervous as he was, but it was probably 100 times more. And he was breathing through his mouth, and I just thought, God, he's really feeling it right now, because that's one of his main kind of mental keys when he's out there. And he ended up hitting his wedge into the bunker and going into a playoff, and then doing, like, the rest is history, right? But that's it's really important to stay on top of that. And I like to think as well, I've got a course planner that I obviously gave to you and Patrick as well, that just gives you a couple of keys that you can just flick open every now and again, and just remind yourself of little things that you want to think while you're out there. A couple of thoughts. It can be your own personal thing. Like we've listed like a few of them in the document that are really helpful.
That's an amazing aid for a player.
But just open it up and just remind yourself. You've got all your yardages there. You've got a wind chart that can help you with the winds, and just a few keys, swing thoughts, mental thoughts. And that's really helpful for me, just to flick it open and read that every now and again. I like to kind of watch what I'm eating when I'm competing. So last week was a big week for me. I said I don't, I've been playing practice rounds. I felt like I was playing okay, but I don't know where my game's at. So let me just control what I can control, and that's a massive part of course management. I ate very, very well. Eating, there's some kind of psychology behind, someone who's eating is in a comfortable position, and that reminds their body that they can relax and they're not stressed out. So I ate so much food, like just apples, bananas, energy bars,
healthy stuff though, no sugar.
Drank loads of water. So no kind of artificial sugars, not all week. Like I didn't consume sugar once, because like I said, I struggle focusing on the golf course, and as soon as I have sugar, it just spikes my energy up and then drops me right back down. So I need to kind of stay in that gray zone. Like I think I spoke about that before, but in terms of course management and stuff, that whole week it was about looking at the golf course and understanding what that golf course wanted from me. And there were pot bunkers. It was a links golf course, so I just knew I have to avoid these pot bunkers at all costs. Whether that means I have a 5-iron into the green instead of an 8-iron, that's the most important thing. Making sure that I've got a shot into the green. So if I wasn't hitting my driver too well, or I didn't like the tee shot, I'd kind of tee that driver down a little bit, get it coming out with a little bit of a lower flight with a bit more spin, so it has more control. And number one, just keep the ball lower. If the ball's going offline, it's going to hit the ground faster and stop faster. Whereas if it's going offline when it's in the air, it's going offline for a lot longer into a bit of trouble. So I just kept it low, kept it tidy, and did what the golf course asked of me. And there wasn't a long turnaround between the next event and the next day after the final day. Or the first one was the practice round. Showed up and my head was a bit flustered. It was a completely different course. It was a parkland tree line course that required a draw, and I'd kind of been playing fades all the last week, so that kind of caught me off guard, and I just don't think I respected the course as much as I should have, to be fair, and it bit me. I lost focus on. There was one hole, so every hole was super tight, like the just trees just staring at you. You were trying to not look at them. That it was that tight, and you just got up there, and it was so tight that you almost had your target set for yourself. But I got on the 16th hole. It was like the gates just opened up for me, and this thing looked super wide. And I got on there and just thought, this is a breather tee shot. I can get away with it. And I just stepped up and lost focus. I never really had a target and pulled it left into the trees up against a root and made 6. And to be quite honest, I knew at that point I'd probably missed the cut. So it was a top 25 in the first event and a missed cut in the second event. I think I was 6 over for 2 rounds. So immediately I just knew I was out. And that one loss of concentration can really bite you. And I just took that one tee shot for granted. It was the easiest tee shot on the course. And it was almost because like people have a bit of like a funny theory that like layups on par 5s with irons can be some of the most difficult because they're so like, you have so many options that you actually don't know where to pick. Whereas, I've always believed you're better off being committed to the wrong shot than uncommitted to the right shot. So pick a target, commit to the target, no matter what, execute. And that's kind of where I made my mistake, but I've learned from it, and I'm gonna note that down moving forwards.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I think you've really got to commit in golf, whether you're right or wrong in your assessment. You have to commit. If you're halfway house, it doesn't help. It doesn't help your swing. No. It doesn't help your game. It tends to materialize in bad shots. So I'm taking all of that and kind of making it relatable for amateurs who are listening. What was your lesson from that experience? And I guess, what over the years that you've played golf, what are the conclusions that you've come to around those moments where, as a lot of amateurs do, they blow up on a hole, and often there's consequences to that can ruin a round. But what are your learnings more recently from that one, but over the past few years that help you to get through those,
I think,
those periods and just refocus?
Yeah, I think my main learnings is that, say you have 2 choices off a hole of what club or what target you're going to go for. If you don't feel comfortable with one of them, go with the other that seems more comfortable. There is no point in getting over a shot that you don't feel comfortable over. That is never, ever, ever going to work. And if it does, it's a fluke.
And if that happens to someone, they're over a shot and they're just not comfortable with it. What should they do? Yeah, just step back.
Get away Reset. From the shot. Yeah, I'm not a slow player. I'm one of the fastest players. I can take my time on the greens at times, but I will step off no matter what. And if I don't, that's another thing. Like I said to you, that's a controllable. I've not pulled the trigger yet. If I'm not feeling comfortable, I can do something about that, right? Your instinct is such an important thing to trust. And there'll be a negative voice in your body and a positive one in your body. And it's so important to just kind of navigate which one the positive one is and go with it. And that's been a massive thing for me. I really do think that, committing to the targets, having a clear target, understanding what the hole wants, and worst case scenario, if it means moving back and taking less club off the tee, not hitting driver, if that guarantees me a second shot into the green where I can at least get around the green or on the green and give myself a chance at birdie/par, that is so much more important than being uncomfortable and trying to hit driver just because my playing partner's hitting driver. It's never the way. It never was. It never will be. It's about being comfortable and making the correct decision for yourself. There's so much, but on paper, this is the club. On paper, like people. No one thinks that's 4 iron. I kind of went out with people in the practice round who were great golfers, and I found myself, obviously, I'd never seen the course before, so whatever club they were pulling out their bag, I was just looking at their bag going, I'll pull the same thing out. That doesn't necessarily mean it's the right thing. It's the right thing for them. Is it the right thing for me? Maybe not. So I'm gonna note that down as well, and kind of make decisions that are suitable for me. And you'll know that, you'll go, well, how do I know what's right for me? You'll just know. there'll be a certain hole that has trouble down the right. You'll know that you've been missing your driver slightly right. Okay, well, that's probably not the right choice. Just listen to your past shot history and your instincts and kind of move from there. That's really, really important, I'd say.
Yeah, one of the things that I've been doing recently is pre-planning my rounds and then really sticking to that plan. And that means identifying danger on each hole. So take hole 1, I'll just take a screenshot of it and I'll mark it up with the drawing tools on iPhone. So I just, if it's out of bounds on the right, I'll put red there to like really remind me that we don't want to go there. And I'll usually pick a club off the tee when I calculate the distances. And then I stick to that plan generally. And I've had those moments too, where I've been stood on the tee and everybody pulls out driver and I've chosen 3-wood on that hole. And my ego goes, oh, should I be hitting driver as well here? But I think that planning helps me to avoid those moments where my ego goes, oh, should you be hitting driver as well? Do you plan like that ahead as well when you're
I do.
to club selection off the tees?
I do. I kind of it's all relative though, right? I mean, one day it might be into wind. I like to plan to a number field, to be honest. So I like to plan to a kind of area. So I want to hit this short of that bunker, but I want to get as close as safely possible. Well, kind of worded that wrongly, incorrectly. But I want to get as close as I can to that bunker without pushing my boundaries, right? So that's the kind of area that I'm aiming for. And it could be into wind, which requires driver on that day. It could be downwind, which requires 4-iron. So it can be 2 different things, but I like to play to an area. And when you talk about OBs and water and stuff like that, people are like, don't want to talk about it. They get on a hole full of water and everyone gets a little bit awkward. No one wants to talk about it. You have to almost embrace it and kind of accept what's in front of you. And, that first week in Montrose, there was OB stakes. I've almost become like immune or numb to like what an OB stake is. There were millions of them just on the coastline that you have to hit your balls over. And I just embraced it and said, like, it is what it is. And I just focused on a target instead of, I don't want to hit my ball there. I focused more on where do I want to hit my ball, right? But I also had in the back of my mind, if I don't execute this shot, where's my ball going to go? So I was planning for failure. I was planning for success. And I did quite well. Yeah, I did quite well. It's just a shame about the last day, but it happens.
That's how it goes, man. It's all learnings, right? That's
and I've got to say as well, like,
that's how we learn. It's the only way we learn.
Yeah. I've got to take my hat off to I think a couple, like I said to you, like a couple of my friends like saw some of the clips that came out of like this podcast or whatever, and it was interesting. Like, I've got to take my hat off to some of the guys who I don't know if a lot of them do compete, but a few of them certainly do, like the Wesley Bryan or whatnot. Like, they have to deal with like, people looking at their social media or what they could say to them and then competing at the same time. And that was something that I was thinking about. I was like, oh my gosh, well, I built up this whole mat thing to people. Like, what if it doesn't come off now? And I'm stood there and it's blowing a gale and the ocean's to my right. I was like, oh, this is horrible. But it's just
maybe that's just a taste of things to come.
Yeah, it was like, it was great for me mentally, because I was like, well, I mean, it felt like the world was watching, maybe because it's just early doors in the season, but a lot of people in golf have a lot to say. It's an interesting sport, really, but it's got a lot of controversial topics, but it's all good fun at the end of the day. Like,
it's also a sport in transition, right? Like, golf is steeped in so much history. It's been around for such a long time. It's had that level of prestige. It's had that level of stuffiness, which is the world I grew up playing golf in the 2000s when I was mid-20s. Going to golf clubs and getting told to tuck my shirt in and all that kind of stuff. And I think it's trying to emerge out of that into something new and something more modern, which is always difficult when something's been steeped in that history for so long. And we all love that. We love the history of the game. We love the traditional side. But also, it doesn't mean that it's perfect, right? There's a lot of new ideas, new developments. You know,
Hmm.
have taken that to a whole nother level by
Yeah, for
bringing a
sure.
competing league in, that's
Yeah, and
more
people don't like that,
aligned
do
with the
they?
viewers. Yeah, well, I
Yeah,
mean, I think there's room for both. But yeah, golf is going through a transition. We're part of that transition.
yeah.
Not everything we say during that transition, you know, by the existing industry might be
Uh-huh.
loved, but our intentions and our goals are actually, if you break it down, and you and I have talked about this a lot, but it's ultimately to give amateur players more fulfillment and better enjoyment of the game, because a lot of people have
Yeah,
a
just
suboptimal enjoyment of the
yeah,
game because of how frustrating it
exactly.
is. So it's like, how can we
Exactly.
help
I
them
think
and fix that for them? That's
yeah,
why we
pretty
exist as a
much.
business.
Pretty much. I think we just want to create just good foundations for people and allow them to try and coach themselves really. Like it, if you want to go for a course management lesson or something like that, or maybe a little tweak here or there, good. But having to rely on a coach for me just it just doesn't sit so well with me. And I never say, I'll never say PJ coaches are bad, because that whole industry has invested so much money into kind of studying the golf swing and bringing kind of coaches through, which has obviously helped the game in so many ways. And there's, I think what did I say? There's a lot of golf coaches out there that can't break. I think it was, what did I say, a certain number, but you know that's true. You can apply for a PGA coaching qualification of a handicap of 4, and that just shouldn't be allowed in my opinion, because there's amateurs out there who are playing off great handicaps who
I think it's
aren't kind of
higher. I,
coaching.
I, I
It
heard it
it
on a
could be
podcast the
higher.
other
It
day.
it could be
It's two
higher. And to be
rounds of
honest,
78. But anyway,
yeah,
it's not the relevant part. I think
it's not the relevant part.
I think the more relevant part is that players hit a wall at 15 or 17. And these might not be players who have consistent lessons. They might be players that are self-taught to that point, and that's the wall
Yeah,
that most people get to. Lessons
yeah,
are expensive, so a lot of people don't have access to that. I never did when I was younger because it was too
uh-huh,
expensive. It was £50 an hour back then
yeah,
in the 2000s. So the question that we're trying to address is, why does this wall exist in golf? That's, everybody hits pretty much. The world average golf handicap is about 15 to
hmm,
17. America, it's about 14, but they have a much better sports and
yeah.
golf infrastructure on the whole.
I'd,
So the question that we're trying to solve is that, like, why do people get stuck there? And actually, maybe it's not as hard as everybody thinks it is. You need a combination of the right knowledge, unified approach to the game, and the right training aids, the right systems that you can follow, that
uh-huh,
other people have proven that they can do it, the right support and the right accountability, which is the same for anything else that you're trying to learn that's as
yeah,
in depth as golf, right?
yeah,
Like,
for sure, for
if you're
sure.
trying to learn business, it takes years to learn all the moving
Hmm.
parts to business and how things work, and then get the experience in it. Golf is kind of like a world like that, but it also has all the physical elements that go with it as well that you have to
Yeah,
kind of master. So that's why we exist. That's our vision and mission in the world, is try
yeah.
to help those guys and
No,
get
100%, 100%. I think just kind of providing everyone with consistency. Like, no one has consistency or any reference as to where they're meant to be, or at least have self-diagnosed, like, reference that they can look at themselves. But yeah, I mean, a lot of, like, I I guess I don't really care. Like, you know, I, a lot of PGA coaches are good. What they can teach is great, but for the majority of the time, they're putting plasters on people instead of actually creating a complete foundation for, like, this golfer, their setup, everything about their game, of how they're gonna move down this whole journey. It's kind of once like 2 steps back, 2 steps forward kind of thing. It's very
yeah
rare that a golfer begins to progress like significant amounts when they're not kind of training on a daily basis, when they're showing up for that 2 week check, once they've already, like, had maybe 5 days of good golf and then fallen right back down. It's just a bit of a roller coaster instead of a constant journey of solid growth and consistency, I think. And like I said to you before, I don't think, I think PJ coaches are good. I've learned so much from them. But I just wasn't getting that consistency, and that was just the main thing for me. And if I did want the consistency fee on it, it would have cost me so much money. You know, I've got friends, I've got a few friends who I know for a fact have spent over $2,000 in the past year or so on golf lessons. And are they any better than they were last year or when they started? No, like not really. Some results here, some results there, but the consistency just still isn't there.
Also,
and that for
another
me
point,
just isn't good
yeah,
enough.
another point, just taking a macro on this, and I get all that, but like everybody in golf loves golf. Like it's one of those things that people are so passionate about, obsessed with
Yeah,
almost, and whoever plays absolutely loves it, right? There's no benefit in the industry at keeping people at 15 to 17 handicap and hitting that wall
no,
there, I don't think, unless it's, well, buy the latest clubs and that's going to make you better. But everybody knows that's not really true. So there's
yeah,
actually a lot more beneficial, there's a lot more value and benefit to the industry as a whole to increase the quality of players globally and help to get them through that barrier and that wall that everybody hits, because then they'll play more golf, they'll buy better equipment, they'll go on more golf holidays, they'll enjoy the game more. There won't be all those people giving it up because they're so frustrated and
yeah,
annoyed, like the cliche is. So it's actually beneficial to address this problem within the industry. But at the moment, the way that the structures are, I don't see that there's much incentives for anybody to try and fix it. But essentially, that's what we're trying to offer to a niche,
yeah. I
group
think
of
so.
players.
I think everyone's just running around in circles, like chasing, like we said, this
The quick fix.
fantastic field,
Yeah,
the quick fix,
yeah.
and like, I mean, if I was gonna get coached by a coach again, I was thinking about this the other day. Like, have a look at their swing. You know, if you like the way their swing looks and their swing's pretty good, then go and get a lesson with them, because they might be able to apply it to you like they applied it to themselves. But if your coach isn't swinging it well, or you don't like your coach's game, don't go and see them, because they've obviously not been able to apply what you want to their own game. So how are they going to apply it to
Yeah.
you? But a lot of these guys, they're great golfers as well. Like, I do want to get that point out. Like, there is some fantastic PJ golfers, like your guy Block, who finished well at the PJ. Got a guy Dan Brown, who's like pretty much a full-time European Tour player now. So you are going to get the few guys that are extremely great golfers, and then obviously a lot of them are busy working. A lot of the guys in Dubai are great golfers as well. The coaches out there are really, really good. So you've got really good golf coaches, but I think it's the overall idea of how they're coaching them that's got no. How can they let this player go away for 2 weeks and make sure that they're doing the right thing and things are in the right place? And then, didn't work for me. It doesn't work for a lot of people. And that is like a statistic. I mean, you've researched it yourself. Like, people are struggling to get past like the 15 handicap mark. And it's something that, like, it's not good enough, like you said. It's simply just
I
like
think
not
there's
good
another
enough.
part of it. It was quite funny. Can I
Yeah,
tell you? Because I
yeah,
know it
far away.
because I am it. But it's mostly guys in the golf industry, right? And guys, number one, they like to try and figure things out for themselves.
Yeah,
Number
yeah,
two, we don't like asking for help. And then
no,
if that wasn't bad enough, number three, we don't like being told what to do. So
yeah.
it's like,
It's never gonna work, is it?
yeah, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Like I'm just looking back on my my
It's probably
golf
why
career, and I'm like,
women's
yeah,
golf is taking over
that's
now.
me. Yeah, yeah. Gonna
It's why
figure
we're
it
all
out on
getting
my
beat by
own.
women. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh my
I
gosh.
don't want to ask anybody for help, and then don't tell me what to do. Yeah, no,
Oh
it's
my God.
it's kind of it's kind of tongue in cheek, but it's true. Guys are like that. But I think if we put all that information online for them and let them, work through it on their own, and they see all the case study of, me and Pat as the founders, and then eventually all the other case studies of players doing it, and they come, we do the online stuff, we give them the physical products, and they come to the boot camp eventually. It will feel like a natural progression, all they need to do is get the results to really, want to continue that journey.
Yeah.
But it'll be self-paced for them. So yeah, that's all super really interesting. I think we're getting close to probably wrapping up here. I've got a few quick fire ones for you on the course management stuff. Let's see how this goes. So try and maybe give an answer to these in like one paragraph, and then we'll see what you think. Most amateurs lose 5 shots before they hit the ball.
Yeah, I'd say so. What is this? Is this just before in an entire round kind of perspective, would you say?
Yeah. So like, I remember you talking to me about, all of the assessment of wind and lie and slope and target selection, off the tee or off the fairway, right? Do amateurs, how many amateurs are calculating all of those things, and do they need to?
I think so for sure. A lot of amateurs don't know the basics about their game. They've got no kind of routine to how they go about things, I'd say, a lot of the time. And then they miss a lot of the stuff, like we said, that they can control, kind of analyzing their shot, how they're going to approach it. And yeah, I think there's so many ways for people to take shots off their score, but they're more interested in doing it by hitting their shot straight to the flag. So it just depends about what people really want. Really, do they want lower scores? Because you can do that by hitting the ball exactly the same way as you are, just kind of understanding yourself better, I'd say. And then there's obviously improving your scores by getting technically better, hitting the ball straighter and whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. We talked a little bit about alter ego. So playing as an alter ego, or bringing a more formal, intentional version of yourself, or embodiment of somebody that you respect to the game. And I think you touched on that. You said no matter what's going on, you're always going to hold your head high, with the shoulders up, and bring that level to your game. And I guess that's about creating belief in yourself, and then also I guess an elite mindset, fake it to make it, maybe even to get the job done. But all of that to help eliminate really emotion from the course.
Yeah, I'd say so. Fake it till you make it. I guess you do have to kind of have a certain ego about you out there, and there's no point backing down from a fight while you're in it. Kind of back yourself while you're out there. Go out there with confidence. Approach every shot with confidence. It's the least you can do, right? The least you can do is kind of look after yourself, be your own best mate out there, and then see where it leads you at the end of the day, I'd say. Yeah.
The secret to consistent contact for amateurs, what do you think that is?
Consistent contact.
Staying neutral.
Yeah, I'd say
pre-shot
a lot of people,
posture, weight setup, all that kind of stuff.
So yeah, I'd say have good fundamentals to start off with. If your kind of sternum's miles behind the ball, your low point's probably going to be miles behind the ball, resulting in bad consistency. So just make sure that your setup's pretty good. Make sure that you stay in balance. So if you move off balance, you're going to mix between kind of heel and toe strikes. Moving between your heels and your toes. Stay flexible, and then just kind of understand the weight transfer that goes on in the swing. So if you're not kind of transferring your weight correctly, then you can move that strike all over the face, I'd say.
Yeah, I think that's a good example of why we exist. There's so much information in golf, and Patrick and I are still experiencing that. It goes to so many levels, and players just don't know. And I'm not sure where they have access to that kind of information. It's very difficult to piece it together from YouTube videos or online and all that stuff. It doesn't really work. But that's another reason why we exist. We want to take this information, figure out what the highest value stuff is by testing it ourselves. Patrick and I, as the founder case studies, and then give that to the players so that they can actually learn it. But it seems like it's one of the biggest problems in golf. They don't. I mean, I read a golf book when I was younger, believe it or not. In my 20s, I couldn't afford lessons. I read a technical golf book. I don't really remember what was in it at the time now, but I guess you could read that, and it would give you information, but no experience. So we're kind of trying to offer both and give them all of that in a unified way. But it's interesting, right? Because I just take it from my personal experience, which is, I thought I knew what I was doing on the golf course, and I'd learned a lot already. And then I realized, like, I'd probably learned 10% of what I really needed to learn to play good golf.
Yeah, I mean, those books are good. I actually kind of don't mind that stuff at all, because it teaches you stuff that can't really hurt you, I guess.
Yeah.
Those books, in a sense, just good fundamentals, really. I mean, it's like we said before, trying to swing it well without good fundamentals is like trying to start your car in fifth gear. It's pretty hard. Like, you can swing it as well as you want, but if you're set up in the wrong position, it's like trying to start your car without even putting the key in. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's just never going to work. So
I think there is that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I like the playing. Everyone's playing checkers. They need to start playing 4D chess.
Yeah, 4D chess.
But this also ties into one of our goals, which is a good one. It's actually the next one, which is self-coaching. I've kind of phrased it. Self-coaching is the future of golf, because if you can get enough knowledge across to somebody and then give them a bit of practical experience and some references, or case studies and people doing it, and work with them a bit, then they can actually have a decent understanding. It's not like this stuff can't be explained to people; they just don't know. So they can have a really good understanding. And like Patrick and I are starting to do now, having given us all that information, we're starting to be able to self-diagnose. Obviously, we still have a lot of questions, and we're trying to figure things out. But we're trying to figure lower level stuff out now in the swing that we didn't even know to ask about before. But we're able to start self-diagnosing and be like, around swing mechanics and all of that stuff. So that's the ultimate goal. Like, people should, in this day and age, with the access to information, and if we can give that to them, everybody should be able to get to a point where they can self-diagnose and then start to improve off their own efforts eventually.
Yeah, it's quite a fun journey as well, I think, for anyone to be able to self-diagnose. Like, they can say, like, they've shot this score by themselves, like, officially. Do you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't thanks to anyone else. Like, that's a pretty cool place to be, like, playing a sport, because obviously there's a few people that are involved with a sport a lot of the time, the manager and a football team, the other 10 players, but there's not many sports where you can turn around and say, like, I did it all by myself. So that is a great thing for a lot of guys, but it's also like the convenience of it. People can't be going to the range every day, getting lessons every day, spending their whole life at the golf club. Like, at some point, it's just going to wipe them out, and they're going to have absolutely no energy. Whereas if you can just kind of say, like, you can self-diagnose yourself in a lot of ways, and you don't have to be spending as much money as you are, or as much time as you are, on things that you don't want to, then it's a win-win, right?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, we can talk about that one just quickly then, which is we know this, we've experienced this now. I used to be the opposite, which was, hitting 300 balls on the range 3 times a week, getting very frustrated, couldn't figure things out for myself. But now we're offering a solution where people can train for 20 minutes a day, 20 to 30 minutes a day, the whole workout, maybe 10 or 15 of that with the weighted club, and just stop doing the range sessions where you're not learning anything, and there's no intention, there's no focus, there's no setup routine, there's no structure. You should be playing on the range. You should be playing on the course exactly as you play on the range. And that's probably what amateurs do. On the range, they're just hitting balls wildly, not really taking that much care or attention. And then on the course, they take that to the course. And again, they're not playing enough care and attention. They're hitting balls wildly, or they're testing new things on the course itself. Whereas the opposite is what you need to be doing. You need to be playing on the range as if you were playing on the course, and taking all of that care, and then bring that to the course with you as well, right? So that's probably just a reminder. We'll need to cover all that in more detail, I think.
Yeah,
because obviously they're not sure what we're talking about necessarily at this point. Yeah,
I think people just wipe themselves out, and it's if you're doing something, it's like what is it, the plane theory? You'll be able to correct me on this, but if you're going a degree offline for 20 minutes, it's a lot different to going a 1 degree offline for 8 hours. You'll end up in a completely different location. So if
Yeah,
you're hitting balls by yourself without any kind of reference or any kind of guidance in a way, it's so easy to kind of really work yourself into some bad habits. So it's important to kind of protect your little bubble and just make sure that you're doing things that aren't hurting you. I think the one thing I'd say for people on the range is kind of just get a bit creative. Probably just try a few things. Try and curve it 50 yards right to left. Try and curve it 50 yards left to right, and just
yeah,
get a bit of a feel for, I don't know, maybe get a bit of a finesse about what you're doing instead of becoming so static and trying to hit this thing like a dead straight sniper, it's not going to happen. The dead straight
I
shot
really agree with that. Yeah, I
doesn't
really
really
agree with that
exist.
from my own
Yeah,
experience. Because I think in golf, when amateurs are practicing, they're almost too scared to change too much. They're trying to keep everything in a really tight box, but what they're doing is wrong anyway. And I experienced this, I
uh-huh,
know this. Whereas what I've realized is, and somebody did say this, but I've seen it for myself, is when you're trying to learn something new in golf, you really need to exaggerate to the extremes of the
yeah,
movements.
yeah,
So, you need to go really out wide or really inside to feel what that feels like. If you're trying to hit shots, fade, or draw, you need to go really, exaggerate all those movements. You can't be stuck within a very small, um, um, range of variables. It just keeps you
yeah.
there. You're not changing anything and you're not learning anything,
No, it does.
you know?
Yeah, and if you're gonna if you're gonna go on the range and you're gonna do stuff, do it right. Be very particular about what you do. Make sure you've got your alignment sticks out. Make sure just go through things very slowly and very correctly, because it's so easy to get into bad habits. Like we're humans, will do what's naturally, a lot of the time we'll do what's naturally most comfortable to us, and comfortable might not always be right in the long term. Even like the way people set up their cameras, so they they'll set up a camera video themselves, and if they video it too low to the ground, the club all of a sudden looks like it's coming outside. If they video it too high, the club looks like it's inside. So people just aren't very particular with what they do. So I'd almost say, like, if you don't know what you're doing when you're going there, just be careful and do something that can't hurt you. Work on your fundamentals. Work on hitting 50-yard pitch shots, 60, 70, and just working up the board until you see things start going crooked. Just be very, very careful, I'd say. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. All right, buddy, we covered a lot of ground. We covered course management, mental game. We covered the golf industry as a whole. Lots of interesting topics and conversations. Hopefully, we've added a bit of value for all of the guys listening out there, and we'll continue to do so. I think maybe next week we can dive into some of these topics that we talked about in the first podcast and the second podcast, and maybe the most valuable thing to kind of shift the thinking of amateurs is their pre-shot routine, and really diving into that and what it is and how it
Yeah.
works and how to practice it at the range, and what the outcomes for them from doing all of that work can potentially be.
Mm-hmm.
Because that is huge, and it can help even before addressing their swing fundamentals, at least getting them pointing straight, at least having that routine so they can take that same routine, same process out to the course, in every shot, without adding in all these variables, changing their setup, changing their swing on the course. They need that that baseline. So we could dive into that a little bit.
Yeah.
I think I know you've got a lot of thoughts and knowledge and experience with that as well.
Yeah, it's all shared knowledge as well, right? So it's not all, this isn't all from just myself. Like I'm a big believer. Like I'll take a page from anyone's book, whether it's like what to do or what not to do, right? So there's always something to learn from absolutely anyone. And luckily enough, I've met a few great people, and I've been lucky enough to kind of gain some valuable knowledge from them, and share it with you and Patrick so far, and hopefully don't stumble on my words and share it with whoever's watching. Yeah
And a lot more people to come, hopefully. I mean, that's
Yeah.
the whole purpose of this, right? Get
Yeah,
people
yeah,
having more enjoyment from the game and playing better golf.
yeah,
The world
100%.
will be a better place for it.
World will be a better place. We need a bit of that, don't we?
we
Bloody
need we
hell.
need better golfers. Yeah.
Yeah, we need the world to be a better place. Gosh.
Yeah. All right, buddy.
Oh no, it's been great though.
Great to chat. Yeah, really fun. And we'll talk
Thanks for
next
having
week.
me.
All right. See you next
Yeah,
week.
cheers, Phil. Bye bye.
Bye. Bye.